Hey everyone, Miko here with Behavior Analyst Supervisor. Thank you for joining us for our free Wednesday Zoom calls. Here you're watching on YouTube, but you could also join us on Wednesday. If you're interested in the link to these calls to join live, feel free to send us an email at info@behavioranalystsupervisor.com. You can also just check out our Instagram. We post questions every single day on Instagram. We also post the link to our free Zoom calls. Every Wednesday, we go through a different task list item area, such as A1. We'll talk a little bit about that task list item, and then we'll go through 3 mock exam questions relating to that task list area. We hope that this provides an opportunity for you to learn a little bit more about the task list and also dive deep into question dissection. We here at Behavior Analyst Supervisor really focus on providing explanations on why an answer is correct and why it's also incorrect. So we appreciate that you joined us. If you have any questions throughout the duration of this video, feel free to shoot us an email, hit that like and subscribe button for more information. Also, you can always leave a comment and we'll be sure to reach back out to you. Thanks again, and I'm Miko with Behavior Analyst Supervisor. You'll also be hearing from Amy and Kevin. Talk to you soon.
Answers that you'd like to give, or if you want to ask a question, then Miko can just kind of like relay that to me.
And I'm going to record all of your names on a random name generator, and we're going to give away a free new to you mini mock at the end of this. So it's
Unpublished mini mock.
unpublished. Woohoo.
Yeah, fresh off the press. Okay. So one of you is already a winner. You just don't know which one. I hope you all feel like a winner. But anyway, this is our topic for today. Define and provide examples of schedules of reinforcement. It's B-5. And another little side note, I went through and I randomly, sort of semi-randomly generated all these for the rest of the year. So you can look ahead on our calendar if you want and see what topics might be coming up. But we'll cover all the topics if we have time. All right, getting into it, because I know I only have a half an hour and I got to get it in there. So let's start with the give me a behavior. So if we're talking about schedules of reinforcement, give me a behavior and let's go through it. At least the simple schedules. We can try compound ones too. So chat Miko, or even I think you can unmute yourselves, but otherwise we have to come up with something.
Someone threw disrobing in the chat.
Disrobing. Okay.
I like the way that's put.
I like it. Flashing is the same thing. Disrobing. Okay. So if we're going to think of just the simple schedules, what would disrobing look like if it were on a fixed ratio schedule? That's interesting. So you have to do something so many times. That's what we're talking about with a ratio schedule, right? So you have to unbutton 6 buttons in order to disrobe. How about that? So you can't get reinforcement for your disrobing until these 6, the fixed ratio of 6 is done. So there's an example. If we make that into a variable ratio, then it's like an average number, because maybe you wear some shirts that have just a few buttons and some have more, but it's an average of 5 or 6 or whatever. I actually don't know how many buttons are on my shirt. I have to like count that now. But yes, that would be an example of ratio schedule. What about an interval schedule? So then if the reinforcement is taking off your clothes, you know, you just love to be naked, then an interval schedule, as I want you to kind of, you know, use your own words, it's slowing your behavior down. It's somehow putting the brakes on it and saying, okay, sure, you just got reinforcement, you got naked, but let's not get naked for another hour or another day or something like that. So if you had a 24-hour fixed interval, you'd be like, okay, I got naked, that was fun, but now it's 24 hours before removing my clothes will receive reinforcement. I don't know what your reinforcement is, praise from others, or, you know, something like that. You can figure out what your reinforcer is, but that's what we're doing with an interval, is slowing down your behavior. And that's a fixed one. Obviously a variable one, the only difference between these is it's just an average, or about this often. So you might actually, with a variable schedule, continue to behave in whatever way, because you're not really sure whether it's time or whether this, number of responses is going to give you reinforcement. You're kind of like, well, sometimes it's a little less and sometimes it's a little more, but you're probably gonna go with that average if you are under the schedule for a long time. So that's why you see that, I'm imagining that the chart that we can all see in our heads with each simple schedule, the variable ratio 1 looks really steep. Well, it's because it's variable and you can respond a whole bunch. So you're probably going to keep responding on that schedule. Whereas the fixed interval, that scallop schedule, that's why you're like, okay, I disrobed already. And now I know I can't really get reinforcement for doing that for some time. So I'm going to pause my behavior until the end of the interval or close to the end of the interval. Okay. Miko, do you have anything to add to those?
Yeah, the only thing that I think the most important thing for me to the interval schedule is that a lot of times we think of it as time-based, and that's partially correct, but it still requires that response at the end. Because if it's simply time-based, then we're talking non-contingent reinforcement. So I think that's one of those key pieces.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I'm glad you mentioned that, because it isn't just the time, right? It's this time, an hour or a day, whatever, has to pass for an interval schedule. And then you doing the behavior receives reinforcement, not just you get it. Yeah, that's a great idea. Okay, so the time-based schedules, doesn't matter what your behavior is, it just happens. And here I'm really talking about schedules of reinforcement that are contingent on your behavior. Okay, so those are some examples. And I know we didn't talk about the compound ones, but shoot us an email.
That's its own beast.
I know, it kind of is. I like them. And so our study guide has lots of examples. We're happy to give you examples. And especially like if you're really that awesome and you really want to know this and pass the first time, then you come up with some examples and send them to us. And we'll say, yeah, absolutely. Or let me, help you tweak that so it's right. Because that's really what we're about, is getting deep. We want to know everything, which means
I have a question. Hi. Sorry, there's like music in the background. My baby is sleeping, but I wanted to ask, so if I like what you just mentioned right now, we can kind of shoot you guys an email if we come across, because I'm doing BDS modules and mocks, and if I see something that's a little challenging, can I just screenshot it and ask you guys for some help on clarifying them for me?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Cool, thank you. Because I actually just DM'd you guys and I was saying that I got a 390 when I took the exam back in December. I was trying to, get it to the pass at the fourth edition, because I studied everything on the fourth edition. So I just kind of was hard to go back into studying it again. I was so devastated, and I gave myself 3 weeks off. Yeah, it was tough.
You're really close, and we would love to help.
So, yeah, I would love a little bit more. I think I need to strengthen my skills in the questions, because I feel I know what I know at this point with the material.
Yeah. You're saying the same thing everybody else does, for sure.
Is everybody kind of saying that with scores?
Yeah, I mean, you feel you know the material, and yet not sure how to get these questions. So absolutely do that for whatever you come across. So not just you, but everybody listening. I want you to reach out. Even if you're watching this, 6 months from now, I want you to feel free
Thank you. You guys have been super supportive, which I appreciate so much along my studying journey. And I bought all the mini mocks and mocks from you guys, and I plan on doing that again. I'm gonna.
Well, hopefully you only need to do it once.
Yeah. Well, I don't. That's the thing. I still have access to the ones from before, but I feel it's pointless to redo those, because I know the answers in a sense. I'll remember. So I'll buy new ones.
Totally. We need, the 5th edition. You gotta, not totally redo, but get back into it. So speaking of, these are some new questions. I, just wrote them. So, and we're all on the 5th edition, but a lot of the same materials, right?
Perfect.
So everybody.
And is it 185 questions? Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, but the new full mock?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect.
The new ones are all set up for 185, unfortunately.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so
Thank
if you are reading this already, while Osana and I were talking, then chat those answers or think about these answers, because I'm going to go ahead and read it. Tina knows that she has her dad wrapped around her finger. He told her that she'd have to wait a year before he'd buy her a car. Although Tina knew from past experience that if she just begged him about 50 times, he'd buy her one anyway. Which schedule of reinforcement does this best describe? And we didn't really talk just now about compound schedules, but you can see that your answers are pretty much all compound.
It's important to remember that compound schedules are just really simple schedules, but more than one at a time. So don't get too thrown by that.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you got enough time to think about it.
Yep, we have some answers in the chat. Kevin, looks like C, alternative is our favorite.
Okay, all right. Well, that's pretty good. You guys are awesome already, because I want you to see when you read this, told her she has to wait a year. So that sounds like an interval and probably a fixed one, right? And there's also this 50 times. So if her behavior occurs about 50 times, so I would call that a variable ratio of 50, then the behavior the behavior will be reinforced. And the same reinforcer, get in the car. So we've got an interval schedule and we have a ratio schedule, and whichever one is met first. So and I think we need to think of the behavior, kind of like Miko pointed out, that the behavior would be asking dad for a car. If a year goes by and she asks, then she can get it. Or if she just begs him 50 times, she can get it, whichever one is met first. And that's right. So C, it's an alternative schedule, because you've got an interval or a ratio, and whichever one is met first receives reinforcement. So
can I add one thing, Kevin?
Yeah, please.
Cool. So with this one, Kevin just pointed out a super important piece of information, that there's one behavior here. I see a lot of folks get this one and concurrent mixed up because of the either or type of thing. But with concurrent, remember, there's always two or more behaviors. With alternative, there's one behavior. So that's the easiest way for me to discriminate between them.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. And I always like that, the other part of that, where one gets met first and then the other schedule is not active anymore. It's, you're not going to get two cars. You're going to get one car, and there's two ways to go about it.
Darn.
I know. Life is so hard. Okay, so I want to just briefly cover this, because this is telling you how we work. I want you to not just know the answer, which many of you apparently did. I want you to look, why is it not the other ones? A conjunctive schedule would mean she has to beg and wait a year, or wait a year and then beg. She doesn't have to do both things. It's just either or. So if she had to do both, it would be a conjunctive schedule. If it was concurrent schedule, kind of like Miko just said, you'd have two different things you could choose from. I can do this or I can do that. And you can go back and forth at any given time. They're both available to you. And a multiple schedule would instead be like you're under one schedule of reinforcement, and then later you're under a different schedule of reinforcement. So it's one and then another and then another. Of course, with the SDs for a multiple schedule. But that's not what's described here. Okay, awesome. Let's try this one. If I can get it to go. There we go. Which might show the effects of the matching law. A, Quinn can watch planes take off about every hour and pop in to flirt with the waitress only once a day, so as not to overdo it. Or B, Quinn has two set radio stations, country and the other country one. Or C, Quinn likes to go fast. His ZX will go 130. His Tesla does 155. D, Quinn has two chainsaws. One takes about 5 pulls to start, and the other takes just 1 or 2. Think about that. Are you thinking about that?
We have a couple of answers coming in, so we'll give folks just a couple more seconds.
Okay.
Looks like D is our favorite. Even split now. Even split between C and D.
Okay. All right. If you haven't taken anything from us, our live webinars, I love it when we get A, B, C, and D, because it just gives us an opportunity, right? So let's look at each one of these. A, Quinn can watch planes take off about every hour. So the reinforcement is available about every hour. Sounds like a variable interval. And pop in to flirt with the waitress only about once a day. So he could do it more. He could flirt with the waitress constantly, but he doesn't want to overdo it. So that's, I hope, suggesting to you that the reinforcement isn't really available until a whole day has passed. So a whole day, 24 hours goes by, he can go flirt with the waitress 1 time. Otherwise, he's not receiving reinforcement for it. So he can do it more, but he's not receiving reinforcement. And again, if you're popping in once a day, that's just the reinforcement's available on a time schedule. So it also sounds like an interval. We've got an interval and an interval. That is necessary for the matching law. You need to have 2 concurrently available interval schedules, and you're probably going to allocate your responses based on when they're available. So what we would expect with A is that, if he really loves doing all of these things, he's going to go watch the planes about every hour, and he's going to go flirt with the waitress once a day. So let's say there's 8 hours available for him to watch planes. He's going to do it 8 times as much as flirting with the waitress. So as I've said all this, I think that's the answer. But let's look at B. Quinn has 2 set radio stations, country and the other country one. So if you can imagine you are playing with radio, they seem concurrently available, right? I could choose one or the other, and they are available at any given time. When I choose one, then I'm listening to that one, or I go and choose the other one. So they're both available, and I can choose them at any time, and I can switch back and forth. That's a concurrent schedule. And if you wanted to try to define that, they're always available. So it's really the ratio. It's a continuous ratio, a fixed ratio of 1. So every time you turn the channel to the country, you get that station. And every time you turn to the other one, you get the other one. All right. And then C, Quinn likes to go fast. So I do want you to see this, that he can't be in a ZX and a Tesla at the same time. He can choose them concurrently, right? So this is kind of both. So I'm going to be confusing here for a second. So we probably need some more information to really define whether this is a concurrent schedule, because he can get in his ZX or he can get in his Tesla. But if we talk about the reinforcement that he gets from each one, I can see this as a multiple schedule too. So he's under some certain schedule of reinforcement when he's in his ZX, and then later when he's in his Tesla, it would be a different schedule of reinforcement. So like before he gets in them, let's call that a concurrent schedule. And then let's call it a multiple schedule if we're talking about what he gets out of each ride. How about that? But again, we need more information really. And so all we need to know is it doesn't fit the matching law. And D, Quinn has 2 chainsaws. Okay, so again, he's got a choice. One takes about 5 and the other takes just 1 or 2 to start. So he can choose between them. The difference here is it is a concurrent schedule, but we're talking about a ratio schedule and a ratio schedule. So the matching law doesn't help us here. The matching law would say, well, let's say it's 5 to 2, 5 pulls on one and 2 pulls on the other, that you would choose about that ratio. That you would go back and forth about 5 to 2. But that's not true. With a ratio schedule, people are probably just going to use the one that starts right up with 1 or 2 polls, because, you know, all things being equal, we're just going to choose the one that gives us the most reinforcement. So matching law has to have concurrent schedules, yes, but also has to have the interval schedules. They have to both be interval schedules that we're talking about. So if you said D, that's why it's close, but it isn't the matching law, because it's a ratio schedule, or both of them are ratios. Okay, our questions or comments on those? I got one more question to go through.
I do have a quick question on that. Actually, that was a pretty tricky question.
Yeah.
And now I get kind of why it is A, but initially I was like, for sure I eliminated A and B. And that's crazy how that works. So this is what I like to dissect the questions. I think helps so much. So that's something that I kind of didn't really know. I thought concurrent schedules and matching law it was essentially sort of like the same thing. Like when you have two choices, you're going to go with one that like you get, you know, you pick the better one out of the 2 options you have or whatever, right? Like you're going to get the reinforcement from the other one as opposed to, But then you mentioned that the difference with matching law is that it has to be interval. See, I didn't know that.
Yes.
That's interesting. Is that,
Yeah, most people miss that. And that's right. That's right.
So it can't
think
be
about
an FR, it can't be a VR, it can't be something fixed.
Exactly. And just think about it. A simpler example would be this, Osama, and everybody else too. When you're thinking about the matching law and it's a ratio schedule, if I say, well, I'll give you $10 for sweeping the kitchen. Or if you sweep the kitchen and twice, or you, let's do that. If you sweep the kitchen every day, I will give you $10. Or if you sweep the kitchen once, I'll give you $10. Well, it's like, that's ridiculous. If the ratio of 1, you're gonna get more reinforcement for. So you're just gonna say, I want my $10 every time, rather than I'll do it 7 times and then you get my $10.
And I always think of it as just maximizing your ability to get reinforcement.
Yeah. So really,
maximizing. So whatever is easier, like obviously sweeping one time and like getting the $10 as opposed to sweeping the whole week. That's like kind of given, right? Like that answer would have been concurrent schedule, right? Because you have 2, you have a fixed and a variable. I mean, a fixed and an interval. You have 2.
Right. And
I'm sorry, a ratio and an interval.
A ratio and a ratio would be like answer D, and you don't want that. You definitely want to look for those interval schedules. And yeah, I agree that is something that not everybody knows. And so there it is.
Yes, one last thing. Sorry, because this was super helpful. That's
well, actually, Osana, can you just email me afterward, because I want to make sure we get through this. But yeah,
it was really short. But okay, I'll email it. Just because I don't want to lose the thought. But I'll.
Okay, yeah, just write it down, or you could actually chat.
I'll send it in the chat. I'll do that.
I'll remember.
Perfect.
But let's do one more question before we get into other questions, and maybe this we can cover what you're talking about. A fixed interval provides reinforcement for the first response following the elapse of a fixed amount of time, right? So there's the define part, right? Which one of the following choices fits this definition? Billy gets a sticker if he sits quietly for 5 minutes. Billy gets a sticker whenever he asks, as long as he hasn't already asked today. Billy gets a sticker as long as he answers a question within 10 seconds. Or Billy gets a sticker as long as he finishes his spelling words and tells his mother about his day when she gets home. Okay, what to think about.
We are split yet again. So we have more votes for A, but we have a couple of votes coming in for C as well.
Okay. Again, I really want you guys to see that. If you're getting the wrong answer, even one time, I don't want you to feel bad. I want you to feel this is an opportunity, because it is like this on the test. You aren't going to be given, here's the definition, or just repeat back the definition to me. You're going to be asked to interpret what scenario does this look like, or given this scenario, what do you do now? Or if you did something, what would it do for your client, etc. So I do want you to get deep. If you can do this, you're golden. I really believe that. I don't see why we wouldn't believe that. If you can explain why your answer is correct and the other ones aren't, you got it. You got it. Okay, so before I'm just trying to prep you. If you get it wrong, that's okay. But a fixed interval, again, just like Miko said, you got to have that interval pass and respond. So if Billy gets a sticker, if he sits quietly for 5 minutes. So he sits there for 5 minutes and then he gets something. So what I see that actually being is more like a DRO, that he sits there. So he has to be quiet. That is not, anything else, yell out or whatever, for 5 minutes, and then he gets reinforcement. That describes the time period more than it does the behavior, or waiting for the behavior to occur, slowing that behavior down. It's actually asking him to do the behavior for 5 minutes straight. So I think that's a different way to look at it. So I don't think it's A is what I'm saying. How about B? Billy gets a sticker whenever he asks, as long as he hasn't already asked today. Okay, so again, interpreting, I hope you can see that's about a 24-hour fixed interval. If you haven't asked today, then if it has been 24 hours or since yesterday, now your behavior, you're asking, will receive a sticker. But if you keep asking, you won't. So you have to wait 24 hours before your behavior will receive reinforcement. So I think B does describe a fixed interval of 24 hours or a day. And then C, Billy gets a sticker as long as he answers a question within 10 seconds. That's maybe a latency issue. I think if I'm putting it into schedules, I would say maybe it sounds like a limited hold, because, let's say I only am going to answer one question every 10 minutes. But when I ask for you to answer the question, I'm only going to give you 10 seconds. That's a limited hold. So the end of the interval has passed. Now reinforcement is available for asking or answering a question, but only within the first 10 seconds of that interval. That's the best way I can think of that in terms of schedules. So it isn't C because of that. D, Billy gets a sticker as long as he finishes his spelling words and tells his mother about his day when she gets home. Notice that there's two things he has to do, and that sounds like a conjunctive schedule. Gets a sticker, there's his reinforcer, as he finishes his spelling words, so there's one behavior, and tells his mother about his day. Okay, he has to do those both. Otherwise, no sticker. Okay, I'm getting the symbol.
Time's up.
Yeah, I guess we're at the end here.
So what was the answer? The answer was A?
The answer is actually B.
B.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So he has to wait. This is a day. I'm just doing it with my hands. And when that day is passed, he can ask and get a sticker. But if he's within the day, he can keep asking. It doesn't prevent the behavior from happening, but he's not going to get a sticker unless he's waited this amount of time. So that's really what an interval is doing. And I think we have to say goodbye.
Next
what do you
slide. You can
Oh,
do it
next
real.
slide.
You said you can do it in 30 seconds.
Oh, that's true. Okay, so I'm going to take you to our website, show you what we offer. If you don't already know, and if you do, you can just ignore me. But when you first come here, you should see this pop up. We have these 4-hour marathon sessions, and they're 2 per month. You can sign up for them individually, or they come with our all you need guaranteed package.
Next one on Saturday. So I hope to see you
That's
there.
true. Yeah, coming up this Saturday,
So
8 a.m. Pacific. But you can check this out. I'm trying to go to the schedule. But the other thing, oh, you got me on a timer. Don't you?
no, that's the wheel. We're going to pick a free mini mock.
Oh, I forgot about that. So the two main things you'll see, all you need, obviously everything we offer, more of a good thing. Some people just like the mini mocks, couple of full mocks. And this doesn't come with our live sessions, and those break down the beats that I just mentioned. But, you know, all you need has everything, and individual items will show you, you know, if you just want to pick one thing. And regardless, even if you pick nothing, please just email us. That's what we're really here for, is to help.